What's going on, everyone? Zane here with Everything Vive. Want to welcome you back for another episode of the show. I'm here with Ronnie. Ronnie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Well, first of all, I just want to apologize for missing an episode last week. Unfortunately, there was a death in the family, which just kind of threw off schedules for both Ronnie and I, and we weren't able to get to an episode, but we're back here this week. And other than that, weekend was good. How about you, man?
Yeah. No, it was my parents were in town, and so I was kind of busy just kind of showing them around and keeping everybody occupied. But it was pretty good. So I'm pretty worn out from the weekend, actually.
Did you show them a lot of VR?
Yeah, I didn't get the opportunity to this time, actually.
What? A whole weekend without VR? Come on.
I know. I mean, I played a little bit after everybody was asleep. But
no, I mean, you didn't want to show them? Or they didn't want to try?
Last time I did, and they loved it. It's just this time, literally, we were just walking around so much day to day. They were only here for 2 days. And so it was kind of one of those things. We did not spend any time in front of any kind of screen whatsoever, because we were outside walking around all day, going from place to place.
It was a beautiful weekend here in Chicago to do that. So
yeah, exactly. So,
worked out well.
But yeah. So I'm in a way kind of looking forward to next weekend to get my screen time back in and be able to just chill and relax.
It's not terrible to go screenless for a little bit. I think we all need that little break every once in a while.
Yep. So.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it. We got a news and game talk episode for you guys, and we'll start with the news section, and we'll keep this. I don't want to say short and sweet, but there's one main topic that I think has everybody buzzing since last week, and that was the interview on Game Revolution with Gabe Newell. And Ronnie, I know you had a chance to take a look at that, right?
Yeah. No, I mean everybody. That's super exciting news, and
people have been talking all about it.
Yeah, everybody kind of knew that Valve was likely working on something VR related, but we didn't really know exactly how many people or how many projects. So now we have a number. Ironically, it's 3.
Yeah, let's get to the big topic here, which was his announcement that I mean, aside from other things that are happening, but that they are working on 3 full-length, specifically developed for VR games. And I know there's been a lot of speculation out there, but what are your thoughts right now? Even if it's just speculation, what do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, we really don't know what they're working on. If there's anything to learn from Valve's history, is that they like to really make a big impact in whatever they're working on. So I think it's safe to say that the projects that they're working on VR specific titles for are going to be something that they really think VR has a specific thing to add to the experience. I think it's a pretty safe bet to assume that they're working on something Portal related. I think that's probably, if I were to bet on any one franchise that would be the easiest fit for VR. I mean, we've already seen a lot of those assets in the lab, and even the fan made Portal stories worked pretty well as far as that went. So you could see, that they would have an easy time kind of adapting that series to VR. At the same time, I mean, I guess to play devil's advocate, if it's too easy, or if they feel like Portal stories already kind of did an okay job and they're not going to substantially make a better game that, by putting Portal into VR, then I could also see them passing. I mean, the biggest, that said, I do think that's probably one of them. But just, again, if there was a reason that they didn't end up doing it, I would probably think it has something to do with, them not being able to find, a twist that they'd be able to really take advantage of and add something to the table. So I mean, that said, I personally would love if they were working on Half-Life 3. I don't know that that's necessarily likely. I mean, everything that we've kind of heard from people that have left Valve kind of suggests that there isn't really anyone there that necessarily is super excited about doing that. And there's a lot of risk involved with bringing back an old franchise like that. obviously there's huge expectations and whatnot. So it'd probably be safer for them to even make new IPs at this point. Besides just Portal and others. I mean, I've seen some rumblings of maybe Left 4 Dead 3 or Dota, another Dota game that works more with VR. I mean, I think that those are unlikely. Dota obviously is huge in esports, and it's such a technical game that I'm not really sure that making a game for a niche market like VR at this point, in that franchise would really make a lot of sense, especially since Valve makes quite a bit of money off of all the microtransaction stuff. I just don't think that would scale well in a VR game. So I personally doubt that would be a game. I also doubt that Left 4 Dead 3 would be one of the titles, just because there already are a lot of zombie shooters and whatnot, in the Steam store already. So again, like thinking what Valve would be able to bring to the table to differentiate the market and kind of add something new, I kind of doubt that they'd spend the resources to make a full length game. In that universe, like that's another thing that is exciting is the fact that these are supposed to be like full length, large scale titles, not just. So one would assume that doesn't mean that it's going to be just like another mini game collection or something like that. These projects sound like they're going to be large scale, projects each and of their own. So those are just some of the. So I mean, if I were to bet, I think out of the franchises that Valve already has, I think the most likely candidate would be Portal, some form of Portal. After that, I mean, honestly, I think the most probable after that is probably Half-Life 3, in my opinion. But I don't think that that's a very high chance. I think probably the other two are going to be new IPs of some sort. I guess there could be a Team Fortress would also be a candidate because I mean you see titles like Smashbox doing really well. So you could see some kind of obviously there's a huge incentive to create something that's multiplayer and social. And I think Team Fortress would fit the bill in VR more appropriately than a game like Dota in that regard. So maybe that would be a possibility. But again, like I think Portal is the most likely. And then the other two are probably either new IPs or maybe you'd see a Half-Life 3 or a Team Fortress in there, but most likely at least one new IP. So those are my that's completely speculation.
Your predictions?
Yeah, and it doesn't really have anything to do with. I have no insider knowledge on what anyone over there is actually working on or anything like that. This is just completely guessing based on products that they already have on market, and then also just what I think would fit well in VR and what might not, and what Valve tends to focus on. But regardless of what they're working on, I think that this is great news, and that I mean, if the lab is any indication of what we can look forward to, I think a full title coming from Valve. I mean, I think most likely all three of these games will be games that if they all come out will be stuff that we're probably going to pick up. So.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I'm just trying to think because what's great is that Gabe Newell did mention the lab and actually referenced that by saying that these games will not be shorter experiences like the lab. They'll be full length experiences, and I think this is exactly what everybody's waiting for. So, not that there was ever any really doubt or real doubt that Valve was working on something, but I guess up until this point, it was still just speculation. But there's like some what am I thinking of here? Just some like peace and calm and some like sense of security, knowing now having a confirmed statement that they are working on something. So it's definitely really exciting to hear. The game's better, so I'm not going to try and out-predict you or give my thoughts. I would say, though, that Portal, it's such a huge I mean, people are just waiting for that. And like you said, with all the references that have been there and all the kind of Easter eggs all around,
Yep.
I mean, Portal. You made the point that Portal Stories might fill that void, and I just don't see. I mean, Portal Stories is great, but I don't think that Valve would be like, you know what, this is good enough, and it's gonna, satiate the hunger out there for a new Portal title. I think at the end of the day, they're gonna want to build on that. Obviously, a fan made, like you said, it's a fan made game. Portal Stories VR was able to get as much attention and kind of just be a stopgap solution for lack of better words, until something better comes out, which should show that there's definitely a market there. You know what I mean? So I think that it would be in their best interest to tap into that market.
Yeah, no, and make no mistake. I mean, if Valve actually made their own VR Portal game, it would be amazing, and they would come up with new tricks and gameplay ideas that no one would really think of on their own, and they'd be implemented in such a way. I mean, Portal 2, for example, building off of Portal 1, just added so many cool features with it added the fluids, the fluid system, and all these like new elements to. I mean, you thought, okay, portals are going to be the main aspect of this franchise, and they found new ways of making that even cooler, and with all the backstory that they added in the second one, that kind of expanded the universe. All that stuff could be really cool, and you don't really get a lot of storyline in Portal Stories, so even that in and of itself was something that any diehard Portal fan would really miss from playing it. So there's still, and one other thing I forgot to mention is that in addition to new franchise, I mean technically it would probably be a new IP, but it's also possible that Valve would build on one of the mini games that was in the lab and expand upon it. Like each of those mini games kind of have their own personality and universe, as it were. So I guess it's theoretically possible for them to expand on some of those as well. I don't know what those would be exactly, but I guess that's technically another possibility is them taking a concept that they've already kind of dabbled in and then taking it to the nth degree and really fleshing it out into something fully realized. So I guess it would be pretty cool. I doubt that this is what they're working on, but I mean, you could imagine like a full longbow game or something where there's more to it than just tower defense. But
yeah, I mean that longbow, like I said, I just have such an affinity for that game or that mini game just because that's what sold me on getting the Vive. I mean, it was just such a great and fluid experience and something that was just so memorable. So I feel like, I would hope that they are working on something or some like little aspect that would kind of build upon that and feed the user base for it, like myself.
Yeah, and like thinking back to how amazing Longbow is, and a lot of the other games just in general on the lab, one of the things I think Valve does better than anyone so far that I've seen in its application of the Vive is handling the haptics and really getting a feel for. I mean, Valve in general, like all their games have always had a very tactile feel to them. Like everything's so interactive. You feel like everything works the way it should. And one of the things that's so impressive about Longbow is, feeling the bowstring kind of pull back just the way you'd expect it to and release and all that. And I miss that kind of feedback in a lot of the other games on the Vive. So I'm kind of interested to see how Valve specifically will utilize the Vive's potential, to an even greater extent than what we've seen out of the independent development community and others that are out there working on VR titles. I mean, like I said, they tend to take advantage of this stuff better than anyone else. So that's regardless of what they end up actually working on or releasing, I just can't wait to see what they're actually working on.
Yeah, I mean, you just know anything that comes out is going to be very well polished, and even if it's not your cup of tea, I think people will end up getting it anyway, just because there's just that hunger for something that has a AAA feel to it, that has that polish, that has that finish.
Yep.
So cool stuff, man. Yeah, and just to kind of quickly piggyback on what you were talking about in terms of multiplayer, I mean, we've definitely seen it with Smashbox, with Rec Room. I think just to continue building upon the the VR community that has really started to grow and really started to gel over this last, almost a year at this point. I feel like there's got to be at least some focus, in one of these 3 games on having a very coherent and competent and even just, fantastic multiplayer game, or a game that has a well methodically produced multiplayer aspect to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
And so, yeah, I mean, whatever form that takes, I mean, remains to be seen. I think it's funny. Gabe Newell, I think, was quoted as saying that some of the more, and I'm using quotes here, but he said some of the more childish employees at Valve wear the Half-Life 3 t-shirts just to keep egging on the rumors. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I haven't.
So I don't know, that makes me wonder if it's if that means that, they're not working on it, or if he's just trying to throw people off. But
man, they're always
whatever the case might be. I just thought that was kind of funny.
That is actually really, and another actually one last thing to kind of bring up. I was kind of
going, man. This is
sure.
I want to dive into this because there's so many gems in it.
Yeah, like another thing that Gabe had brought up when he was talking about these, Valve's development with the Vive, is the new controllers, I think, and so that's also something to consider, is that that new form factor, the ones that we've seen that kind of look like a mix between Oculus controllers and Wii remotes, and kind of has their own proprietary like grab functions and all of that. Like, that controller may very well be developed, by Valve and HTC in conjunction to facilitate whatever games that Valve is working on. So as far as like game mechanics are concerned and what they're actually going to play like, it's possible that there may be, certain types of features that we're not even really thinking about right now. So, because they do have that advantage, since since they work directly with HTC, and they're the ones kind of behind the design. I mean, in addition to knowing how to best use the hardware that's already available, they kind of have, the inside track on helping to develop new hardware if necessary to get their experiences to where they want them to be. So,
yeah, well, I mean, even at Steam Dev Days, they debuted the prototype controllers, which is under Valve and not necessarily HTC. But I think there's definitely an influence there, and I mean, it's a positive one, because it's a good positive working relationship that I think HTC and Valve have, where they're kind of pushing the limits together, with HTC obviously spearheading the hardware side and Valve going on the software side. But I think there's definitely, I mean, you'd expect there to be some good collaboration between both to help optimize both sides. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and actually, so speaking of which, another point that I wanted to bring up was the fact that he mentioned there would be, this isn't confirmed, obviously, but it's Gabe Newell's speculation, which I think for everyone is kind of almost, so some people would take that as a rule of law, but he's saying that 2018 will have fully integrated wireless headsets for, I think he said PC headsets in general. So I'm assuming he's also talking about the Rift, but obviously, like, we're talking about the Vive here. And so, you just look at, he said 2017 would be an add-on year, and 2018 it would be fully integrated. So if we're looking at the life cycle, which is what we talked about last week, but the life cycle between Vive 1 and Vive 2, whenever Vive 2 comes out, if that does come out in 2018, or is only 2 years apart or something like that, that could feature it. And I mean, it's crazy to think that we're not that far off. Like, if you were to say that last year, like, okay, this would be like an integrated feature and fully involved and fully customized or whatever for you to have right out of the box. I just don't think that people would have necessarily thought that might be the case, but just with the advancement of all these different wireless solutions coming up, and I mean, you have Quick VR, you have obviously the TP Cast, which worked directly with HTC, but Valve is also working with a company called Nitera on a wireless solution as well. And I don't have too many details on that. But the thing is, like, one of these companies I think is going to eventually score the ultimate deal by working directly with, whether it's the Oculus or whether it's the Vive. You know what I mean? To be fully integrated, unless of course HTC develops their own. But it seems like these companies are developing and working with other companies to develop that tech. So 2018, man, it's not too far off. I mean, I think you and I are going to be in the add-on territory. But for people who are on the sidelines right now, which I know that there are quite a few, just in all the friends and people in my network that wanted to buy one and talk themselves out of it, saying that they wait for the next generation. Which I'm not going to say that's an awful idea. I mean, this is very much still an early adopter market, but I mean, I think that's one of the biggest features. Even I remember my uncle came over to try the Vive, and his first comment was like, "Why is there still a wire on it?" So, even for and I say this lovingly, but even just for an older gentleman who played Atari as like the first system when it came out, he looks at this and says it should be wireless, and that's like his first instinct. You know what I mean? It's definitely coming, which is good, and hopefully in the next couple of months here for us, but also as a fully integrated feature within the next year.
Yeah, no, that's exciting news. So lots of exciting news. I think anytime Gabe Newell decides to grace us with some interviews.
I mean, the thing is, say what you want, but the man has a very good pulse on where VR and the technology is right now. And so, that if he's saying something, there's a lot that he's seen and worked on or developed to back it up. And so, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not rule of law. It's not final word, but it's pretty damn close, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, it's probably the best predictor of where things are going. And I think we can all get a really good idea. So, when someone like him or someone like, you remember the article that you had sent me a while back with Tim Sweeney, when giants in the industry like this talk, I think people make sure to listen just because, these are the movers and shakers. These are the people that are really influencing where this stuff is going.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So that's why it's always so fascinating to hear their perspectives, and gives you real hope for where things are going in the future.
Absolutely. So that's all I have for news. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to throw in.
No, I mean, not really. The only other news item, and I don't really have it up, but it's kind of just obvious somewhat at this point, but 2016 was the biggest year for venture capitalist funding in the virtual reality and AR space. I think it was either 2.2 or 2.3 billion dollars invested in virtual reality and AR. A lot of that was AR. It seems like Magic Leap took like 780 something million itself, and there were a couple of other big ones. But in general, the feeling is that there was a ton of investment into VR and AR this past year, and so hopefully we'll start seeing more of the benefits of all of that money being poured into this industry in the coming months. So we didn't see the result of all that money yet. That's all of this investment in 2016 is really just the start of everything. So I definitely say the next 2-3 years we should see some pretty interesting stuff happening.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff takes time, and with the headsets coming out in April, and there being kind of, I don't want to say a lag period, but it took a little while for the momentum to build, for people to really see what they were capable of, for top tier games to come out and really show what type of market and potential these new platforms had. If they'd put stuff in just 6 months after, we're going to start seeing that stuff come out soon. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting either way. I mean, there's definitely a lot of investment happening, all across the board, not just with the Vive and not just with premium headsets, but even on the smaller scale stuff like Gear VR or Pixel. But Yeah, man. So let's jump into game talk then.
All right, let's do it.
Would you like to go first? You want me to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can go first. Mine is, I mean, I guess I'm never that brief when I talk about games. This one, though, is pretty.
The thing is, we want to be able to give detailed descriptions of the games that we play. These aren't
Yeah.
we don't call them reviews, but for a specific reason, because they're not reviews. But we want to give as much insight as we can to people who are looking for new games and experiences to try.
Yeah, no, sure. So, I mean, yeah, the game I wanted to talk about today, it's not a new game by any means, but it was just one. I was kind of poking around the Steam store, and I happened to come across a game that was pretty highly reviewed that I didn't have in my library, which is kind of rare nowadays. And that game was 11 table tennis VR. So, and I actually like ping pong quite a bit, so I decided to pick it up. It was $9.99. And like I said, the reviews were very, very positive. So and I liked what I was reading. It was basically, it sounds like, the game has been patched significantly in the recent months. So especially it looked like there was some activity here in November and December of last year. So, fairly recent updates to the game that probably kind of, brought it to the forefront again and made it something that kind of stuck out to me. But so I decided to pick it up and yeah, I mean, it's very, very well done. It's very simple. So as far as, I mean, you load up the game and you're in kind of a loft apartment type, area, and there's a ping pong table and you just go at it. And, before you're even in any menus or anything like that, I really like how it just boots up and you see an AI avatar across the table from you, and and you can just pick up and play and just kind of mess around before you even get into any menus, just to get a feel of how the game works. And so right away, I kind of figured out, kind of how to move the table. I really like the way that it lets you, basically with one of the menu buttons on the Vive controllers, it lets you reposition the table so you can move it forward or backwards depending on what your play space looks like. And then you can also move it up and down. So you can kind of make it feel the right height for you. And I mean, on one hand, I guess because you can kind of mess with it to your liking, it's possibly a little less realistic in that regard. But at the same time, I think overall it was a good move on their part, because having that flexibility really made it much easier for me to position the table where I needed it to be for my room scale setup. So once I had it, feeling right, then you just play ping pong, and all the physics are spot on. Honestly, I'd say the only thing I noticed, and I do play ping pong quite a bit, so the only thing I noticed was, if you want to spike the ball or really hit it hard, I think it's a little bit hard to judge those kind of hits, because, obviously there's no real ball there. But especially with lighter hits and just kind of your average, just kind of, just casually kind of hitting the ball back and forth, everything surprisingly feels just like it really would. Just like it really feels when you're actually playing in real life. I mean, like, no joke, my serve looked almost identical. My, just my ability to hit balls back and forth, like, were more or less exactly, like, I had the same weaknesses and strengths in VR as I do in real life. And the AI that's built into the game is no joke. I mean, honestly, they're really good. So if anything, it's probably too good. So, like I said, I'm not that bad at ping pong. Like, I'm pretty decent. And even at, the kind of the medium settings, I was kind of getting worked a little bit. But then so the game has some mini game modes, and it has single player, and then it also has multiplayer.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, so I played the mini games a little bit. Those were kind of hard for me because a lot of it requires specific aiming and that sort of thing, and it's just so precise that it was fun and challenging for sure. But it really wasn't, like, I'd rather just play a real game. So I, like, kind of right after I had played a few matches with the computer and just kind of got it destroyed a bit, I decided to go online and play multiplayer. And it was really nice. Basically, while you're waiting for a match to be set up for it to find a player, you can just play an AI character. So it lets you just kind of mess around until a match is found, and then it just loads you up, and you're instantly playing with that person. And it was super intuitive. Just like in most multiplayer games, you can talk and all of that. And there was a little bit of lag, but at least in the games that I was playing, the lag didn't really affect the actual play. It would stutter from time to time, but the game was good about making sure that the animations were smooth where it counted. So, like by the time the ball was actually getting to your side of the table, the lag would kind of be removed, and you'd hit the ball back, and it would give you enough time to react properly and all of that. So, like, I never felt like I missed anything because of lag or anything like that. Like it was actually really fun playing with someone, and we had a blast. We played a few games, and honestly, I just got off because I had to leave. I was really having a good time, and after a while, I really felt like I was playing ping pong. Like it wasn't, other than the fact that you can't actually feel the table there. And the only other thing I missed, which is kind of what my brain was getting geared reminded of when we were talking about longbow, I feel like the game could use a little bit stronger haptic feedback on the ball hits. So, like if when you're hitting the ball, I wish that you could just feel it a little bit more, even though there is some subtle feedback going on there. But besides that, I mean, if you like ping pong, it's kind of a no-brainer. And honestly, it's not super fancy or anything like that. The avatars are really funny in that they're these kind of like creepy, almost like Donnie Darko looking, like creepy bunny masks, which is kind of like, it was weird at first, but then you just kind of ignore it and you just keep playing.
You just get used to it, right?
Yeah. But honestly, if someone out there is listening, and you're a ping pong, you're a ping pong fan and you don't have space or the ability to play at on your own table at home, I really think this is a no-brainer to pick up because it is a lot of fun, and it's not fancy or anything like that, but it's just a really solid game of ping pong. So
cool, man. Yeah, the thing is, like, I mean, lag for any game, obviously, I think would mess it up, but especially for a game like this, you'd want to make sure that there's no lag because, I mean, that would just throw off your whole hand-eye coordination with pretty much everything.
And I didn't play a ton, so I mean, that might be something that I need to spend a little bit more time on to see if it gets significantly worse with other players or whatnot. But the games that I had played, even though there was some lag, it didn't affect the gameplay at all, and I was still able to have a ton of fun with it. So,
very cool, man. Well, that's actually exciting for me because I used to play a lot of ping pong when I was younger, not like officially or anything, but I don't play as much as I used to. Is I guess the point I was trying to make. But that's really cool to see. I mean, this is something that I'd actually be very interested in checking out, just because if the hits are as realistic, can you get like curves and stuff on the ball, like topspin or something?
Sure.
Really? Okay.
For sure. I mean, I'm telling you, like, other than the fact that when I would try to slam the ball, I usually wouldn't. But I mean, honestly, I'm not great at slamming in real life either.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's just my own limitation. But whenever I tried to put a lot of force on things is when I felt like it fell off to me a little bit. But like I said, I'm not great at using force anyways. But anytime I was just trying to get the ball in and, direction, put it in a certain direction and try to even put a little bit of spin on it, or all of those things felt just the way it should. And I mean, the game does advertise itself to have simulation level physics. So, I mean, I honestly, like, I think all of that stuff spin wise and the proper forces and everything, like, I wouldn't be surprised if my complaints about being able to hit the ball hard are just, aspects of my own ping pong game that are insufficient. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it really feels real. And when you get used to it, and like I said, because you don't feel the ball, you have to have a little bit more of a subtle touch. I feel like you have to be a little bit more careful than usual. But once you get the hang of that, I felt like I was playing very similar to how I would be in real life. Like it was it was surprisingly similar.
Very cool, man. I'm just trying to think because I don't think I've heard of another ping pong game or table tennis game out there.
I mean, there are a couple, but
there are?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know them off the top of my head. But this is just one that stood out.
Have you tried any others though?
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, either way, okay, I mean, we're talking about this game, and it sounds like you've had a pretty positive experience with it so far.
No, I did, and like I said, if the reviews are any justification for me picking it, I mean, the reviews were all extremely positive, and there were quite a few reviews. So I feel like a lot of people have played this game, and a lot of people have came back with great things to say about it. So I think it comes highly recommended, not just by me, but by the Steam community at large.
Cool. I was just checking out the Steam page for it. Looks like it is $9.99 in terms of US dollars. Oh, yep. And it's available for Rift as well. So that should mean the player base is doubled.
There you go.
Technically.
There you go.
Cool stuff. Okay, so the game I tried out this week was actually it released last week. I think the date for it was February 8th. Yep. Okay. February 8th. It's called PowersVR, and
it's funny. I just read about this game. I was interested in looking. No, so I'm glad you got to play this because I was curious. I was looking into it.
Really? Okay. So before I get into it, how did you hear about it?
I don't remember. I found it. I was Googling VR. I don't remember exactly. Like maybe it was on Upload VR. I'm not exactly sure. But I was just kind of perusing around and I saw something about a game that looked like it was developed by a single person and it involved superpower. Like it sounded like the guy who worked on it originally set out to make, like, he wanted to be Iron Man in a game or something like that. And then kind of started working on what eventually became PowersVR is my understanding. But
okay, I hadn't seen that. This was kind of actually turned on to me from Damon, who had passed it along, and so
okay.
I mean, so it's just a newer game, and so I gotta say, the concept is really cool, and I think the one thing that I will agree with, it has all positive reviews, and there's not many reviews right now on Steam since it's still pretty new, but they're all positive. But the one thing they all have in common is that the game has a lot of potential. And so that means two things. That means one, the experience that they've had with it so far is great or good. But that also means that there's a lot of room for the game to go. So I agree with it in the sense that it is nowhere near a complete game. I mean, I want to say about half an hour in it before I felt like I had done most of the things in there, or at least accomplished most of the, it's not missions, but
what's the tasks, I guess, they give you? Or?
So it's not even tasks. It's really just introducing you to the different superpowers. But
okay.
So here's the thing. Like, I mean, as somebody who grew up, watching cartoons and comic books and things like that, like, it's awesome to finally have a game where you can do some really cool stuff with your hands. So I think there's like 8 different superpowers right now that you can like collect them. And so I don't know what the overall long-term vision for the game is right now, but you can kind of collect these superpowers and switch back and forth between them. So, one of them, the most basic one that you get in the beginning is a teleportation power. So that's kind of cool, but it's also pretty standard. But then there's also a locomotion power up that you can get in the form of like, excuse me, but in the form of like a speedster or like the Flash. So you do your locomotion and you're actually zooming down these streets very, very quickly. And you're like in a city-like environment. And so it's cool because like they kind of blur out the sides of the field of view to make it not as nauseous or nauseating. And so that works well. I mean, there's another one. I don't want to give away too many, but actually, it's fine. It's fine. So, it's not like it's there's one that you can fly, so obviously that's a lot of fun. And then like there's different powers. I mean, one of them you have a machine gun for a hand, which isn't really a superpower, but there's other ones where you can kind of throw fireballs out. One of my favorites is, you're essentially Cyclops from X-Men, where you shoot laser beams out of your eyes.
That's cool.
So that was the first one. No, not the first one.
How do you activate the laser? Do you have to touch your visor? Or?
No. So it's just you just hit the trigger, and it's whatever you're looking at the time.
That's cool.
So yeah, like I said, go ahead.
So because when I was reading about it, my first kind of instinct was, it's obviously not as on point, but in some ways, Richie's Plank experience kind of reminded me of being a superhero, and that you could kind of zoom around town with the rocket boosters and stuff. And playing Richie's Plank experience kind of made me want to play like an Iron Man-esque, superhero type game, and just, I can see a lot of potential for someone to get that right. Right now, in kind of its early stages, does PowersVR kind of have that solid feel that a Richie's Plank experience has in terms of like your movement around the environment and that sort of thing, or kind of like what does it feel like to fly around versus kind of some of the games that are out there already, and kind of what makes it stand apart?
Yeah. So, okay. So if we're comparing directly with the Richie's Plank experience, and I don't want to take anything away from either game, or put a game, on a pedestal, but like I would say that right now, the Iron Man feeling that you get with Richie's Plank experience on that fire deck level, is still unparalleled. I haven't found another game that does that as well. So that being said, this game does have a feature where you can fly around, and it's not awful. In fact, it's actually pretty good. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just I don't want to say biased, but just spoiled with what Richie's Plank experience offered. But it's cool in its own right. I think that it's just different, and I'm trying not to cop out of an answer here, because
no, that's fair.
At the end of the day, like I feel like the game is still very, very early in the early access phase of its life cycle, and so I feel like there's going to be stuff added to it, especially for the flight. But the thing is, like, it has that feature, and like it was actually really cool to be able to fly around the city shooting laser beams out of your eyes. That was a pretty awesome feeling. But the one thing that it didn't have that Richie's Plank experience does, and this could have been out of design, so I'm not saying that it's necessarily better or worse, but there was no gravitational pull. So whether it might be like the power of the superhero, or the superhero power that you have, where instead of like falling every time you let go of the trigger, you're kind of like hovering in place. And so, like I said, that could be maybe part of the design. I'm not sure. But still, it's kind of cool, because I guess Superman would do something like that, right? Or
Iron Man, you can kind of, I can see how that would be useful, because then you're able to kind of use your powers from that place.
Yeah, and then you can just kind of like survey things around the area, and it's just like I said, So like I said, it's a different feel of a game. And Richie's Plank experience wasn't really going with it was going with like a hero feel to it, flying around. But this game is really trying to get, really capture that superhero comic book-esque aesthetic to it. And even just like the little intro that you go through, everything's kind of shown to you in comic strip format. And then when you go around the city, everything is very much like, the aesthetic is very much like if you were in a comic book, or like a cartoon or something like that. And so it's got a lot of charm in that sense. And there are like robots that you can fight, and they don't put up too much of a fight, and I wouldn't say that the AI is anywhere close to where it should be. But again, like I said, I'm sure the dev is working on this. But
and like I said, from my understanding, this is a one-man show, so.
Yeah, and so like I said, just going through, I haven't seen anything else like this, and so I'm really hoping that this guy succeeds. Obviously, I hope everybody succeeds in their endeavors, just because VR really needs to get there. But I think this is a very cool and unique idea, and I agree very much with the reviews that are out there right now. It's got a lot of potential, and for $8, and I think it's even on sale now for like 10% off, so you can get it for like $7.
Yeah.
But it's not, I wouldn't say that it's overpriced. I would say that maybe for the experience that you get right now, it's not necessarily worth it. But
I guess
this is
yeah,
something
you're kind of paying too for like if you like the idea, like if you're someone like, I mean, it sounds like you really love superheroes. Like I mean, I know I am really hopeful that there will be like a cool VR superhero game eventually. And I feel like if you're really into that, then spending just a few bucks to support someone that's trying to put something together like that really isn't too big of an ask.
No. I mean, we had this conversation before with like, what's the mindset that you have going into buying early access titles? And so, like, I think if you like the idea, if you get it, and it's something that you think has tremendous potential, and it seems like the developer is active and actively trying to be a part of the community that's building around the game, actively trying to listen to what the suggestions are and implement those as quickly as possible. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a game that you want to be on the early access side of, because you can provide that feedback. So I would say that this is probably a game like that, because it's polished enough where the foundation for the game has already been laid. You have these different superpowers, you have just kind of a nice range of things that you can do. And I think what will be cool is watching the developer or development team, if it grows, watching them add content to this, maybe add levels, add objectives, add things like that. And, as it goes. But right now, in its most basic level, I still think that it's worth investing in, which is why I'm talking about it here.
Very, very cool. Well, yeah, no, I think I'm going to have to pick it up as well because, like I said, it already sounds like it has some cool ideas, and I really can't wait for a title that really gets the feeling of being a superhero. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, may not be there right now, but it's definitely cool to see it on its way. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that because, I was really interested in it already. So.
Oh, that's kind of random that you had already heard about it beforehand, but hey. Cool, man. Well, that's all I got for this week. How about you?
Yeah, no, same. So, and have some cool games that I plan on playing for next week. So. More on that later, and other than that, no, I think we're done for the evening.
Yeah, looks like it. And so, guys, we'll be getting an interview out shortly. Like I said, unfortunately, last week, just with the craziness and everything that happened, had to reschedule some of the interviews that we had planned and reschedule some of the shuffle things around. But we are getting those locked down, and we'll hope to have some more interviews for you guys soon. And regardless, we'll make sure we're back next week with some more game talk and news. So with that being said, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. We are on iTunes and YouTube, so please make sure you subscribe on those platforms, and Stitcher as well. And if you have any comments, let us know your thoughts on these games or on anything we might have missed with Gabe Newell's interview, and let us know on YouTube, and we'll continue the conversation there. So take care, and we'll talk soon.